the worst contract ever, the worst quarterback play ever, the worst team situation ever. There are 230 million reasons why Deshaun Watson is nuking the Cleveland Browns franchise. He's got the league's worst EPA per play, success rate, is sacked the most, the lowest in ESPN's QBR metric, and while the Browns have a lot of talent on their roster, they are sitting at 1-5, one of the worst teams in the NFL. How bad is it? How bad is Watson, and is it literally all his fault? The answer to the last question is no, but it's pretty damn close. At the core of his terrible play, he has become a one-read thrower. NFL concepts have multiple reads built into them, so if your first read isn't open, decent quarterbacks can progress to 2, 3, and at times 4 and 5. But if you have a limited quarterback like Watson, he sees his first read isn't open, then he's almost always taking off to run. This leaves a ton of potential production on the field because he isn't the runner he used to be, so this leads to his league-high 31 sacks, which, by the way, is on pace for the most of all time. There are tons of reasons he struggles to get off his first read. It's because of his pre-snap processing, his post-snap processing. He's inaccurate, he's not on the same page with his receivers, has no anticipation, and the Browns' bad pass protection factors into this too. But before we dive into his film to see examples of each of these, I want to thank this week's sponsor, SeatGeek. With the NFL season well underway, SeatGeek is the best app to use for buying tickets to your favorite team. I've used SeatGeek to go to a Jets game last week, Cubs games, going to a Colts game and a Chiefs game in the near future. Anytime I'm going to a stadium with my friends to enjoy the best sport in the world, I always prefer SeatGeek. I prefer them because they rate the deals for each game based on the best deal for each seat. A green dot is a good deal, red dot, bad. So I hop on either weeks out or hours before the game, concert, or festival I'm going to, find a green dot, and let's ride. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and what is really awesome about them, no matter how many times you use SeatGeek, you can always use my code Rollins10 to get 10% off your next order. That's Rollins10 for 10% off your next order. First, we'll start off with his bad pre-snap processing, which ruins plays from the get-go before the snap. Making a bad read pre-snap makes it extremely challenging for him to process things post-snap. We've talked a lot about how motioning a receiver across the formation indicates to the quarterback it's zone coverage when nobody follows him, since in man coverage someone had run with him, since it's one-on-one. So when Watson sees this motion and nobody follows David Njoku, he thinks he has him open to the flat in zone, but can't come back to Cedric Tillman wide open over the middle. He's an even worse post-snap processor, which is where I believe he's regressed the most. Even when his first read is open, his anticipation for where that receiver is gonna be is non-existent, so he leaves completable passes on the field. This is a deep comeback route to Amari Cooper outside, but watch how Watson doesn't throw with anticipation, meaning before Cooper comes out of his break. He has to wait to see it open. QBs who struggle with anticipation aren't throwing before the receiver's break, so this gives Benjamin St-Juste time to get back into the play and break up the pass. Watson struggled reading coverage rotations too. Because his pre-snap read is bad, it puts too much on his post-snap process, so he isn't able to take in enough information, which leads to turnovers, or almost turnovers. Quarterbacks are taught to eye the weak safety right after the snap, because he's the one who's most likely to give a tell for what the coverage is. If he rotates down, Watson knows he's getting some sort of one high. If he rotates deep, he's getting two high. If they're playing a sort of robber coverage, the weak safety is rotating strong. So, yeah, if you're studying film and want to know how a quarterback's progression works, nearly every quarterback is coached to read either the blitzer first, then the weak safety, or the weak safety right off the bat. This helps them determine what coverage they're getting so they can then figure out who to throw to. But unfortunately, because Watson doesn't vision anybody but the weak safety, he doesn't know that they're playing Tampa 2 cover 2 zone. He thinks they're just playing regular cover 2 zone, and he throws what should have been an interception. His play against man coverage is just as bad, Man is typically easier to read for quarterbacks since an open receiver is more defined than in zone. My guy beats your guy. But with the Eagles rushing 5 and doubling Cooper, it's one-on-one across the board. Even when the Browns are running Lion, which is read inside out, Watson doesn't throw to Tillman, who's on the rookie Cooper DeJean, and the pass falls incomplete. A lot of the blame should go on Watson. 22 cases is no joke. Oh, that is not the right stat. But the Browns coaching staff in general needs to shoulder some of the blame because the offense is often not on the same page. Here we can see the overthrow and Cooper and the coach unhappy with each other. So what gives? Well, when teams ISO their best receiver to one side and get man coverage, coaches like Kyle Shanahan like thunder routes, which adjust based on the coverage. You're supposed to run a go route at 6 yards, but thunder adjusts based on where the cornerback is. If it's press, you run the stop route, but at 8 yards, and if it's cloud, like in zone, you run a fade to nestle in between the corner and safety. It looks like Amari is seeing press coverage, so he runs the 8-yard stop, but Watson reads cloud, even though it's not there, but the coach also tells Amari to run it too, so whoever is right, it doesn't matter. The Cleveland Browns offense is not on the same page. You'll see this go down pretty consistently, where it's just not clear who is right, who is wrong, and it's made it so ultimately Watson doesn't trust his receivers. Here the Browns are running 9-8-9 or doubles, where both outside receivers run go routes outside, and the middle receiver runs a post, but converts his route to a dig if the defense is a one-high middle of the field safety. Cooper gets his one-on-one outside and runs the go, but weirdly releases back inside of the cornerback and doesn't end up anywhere near where Watson thought he'd be. This same play transitions us to the next part of the problem. Watson doesn't trust his offensive line, which has sped up his processing and is at least what partially has turned him into a first-read quarterback. The Browns have 6 for 6, blockers for rushers, and it's pretty clear what the Raiders are trying to do. So let's kick out our 3 for their 3, easy enough, but Tyree Wilson just blows by the line of the snap and Watson gets absolutely torched. This has been a glaring issue for their offense. The Browns' offensive line has been atrocious. Their running backs can't protect, it's led to a ton of sacks, so Watson drops his eyes after his read isn't there. Dawan Jones has been atrocious. They've had injuries at left tackle, center. This is barely an NFL offensive line, and teams know how to attack it. The Commanders are running a cross-dog blitz, where typically the center has the first crosser and the running back the second, but the Browns running back Jerome Ford is a little light in the ass, so Bobby Wagner runs right through him and creates a sack for Jonathan Allen. Then a few plays later, the Browns coach Kevin Stefanski tries to adjust to help Ford out and create a better matchup for him, but he can't handle that either, gets destroyed back into Watson, and he takes another sack. In my opinion, beyond the limitations of him and the pass protection, Watson was always a weird fit with the Browns because of the coach and the personnel. He is a spread him out quarterback who wants to operate out of empty formations, mix in the QB run game and his extend the play ability, while Stefanski and the Browns are a heavier personnel, under center, run the ball first offense, with an offensive line that is built to maul you rather than protect the passer down after down. Stefanski is a great coach who in the past has turned this franchise around, and there is a ton of talent on this roster, but he isn't a quarterback guru who is going to continue to develop Watson. Any quarterback still needs that this late in their career, and you can tell his growth has been stunted. He's reverted back to the 2017 rookie version, the raw running quarterback, who would break the pocket the moment he got the chance. Sound familiar? But now that nobody can stand up to him because of his insane $230 million deal, the Browns are forced to trot out a nightmare of a player week after week with no end in sight. They're basically a spiraling out of control franchise with a quarterback who has regressed, a coach who is good but can't adapt his offense, and a team built to run when their quarterback is built to pass. There are still glimmers of the old Deshaun Watson with still the same passing ability, but those moments are few and far between, and the Browns' future is the bleakest in the league. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. At some point they will have to bench him, but will still have to pay his salary, and will be in cap hell for the next couple of seasons. How could their stars not want out of Cleveland? How can you look Myles Garrett in the face and tell him this will be his reality next season, let alone next week? The Browns are in an impossible situation, and their only way out is for a broken quarterback to magically become fixed.